Hi, Steve and Caleb from Brownells here, bringing you another edition of Smythbusters. And today, this is kind of a close to home thing.
We got to be careful on this one.
That's right.
This is the topic of this myth is that, or is it a myth, that you shouldn't modify your carry firearm.
Right. The gun you might have to use to defend yourself someday, should it be left stock, just right out of the box? Or can you modify it?
Here's the deal. Before we get into anything here, let me just cover the basis. All right. This one is Steve and Caleb's opinion based off of research that we have done and some individuals that we have consulted with. This is not us telling you yes or no you should modify your carry gun. With that being said, laws are constantly changing. Let's jump into it.
Just look for some general guidelines.
Yeah. So with this one, we kind of consulted with, usually we consult with firearm industry professionals. Mm-hmm. This time we consulted with professionals in the courtroom. So we're going to be regurgitating what the defense attorneys are saying, not necessarily what the firearm writers and instructors are saying, because they're the ones that actually deal with this stuff.
Yeah, they don't seem to be in quite agreement with each other.
Some of them are.
Yeah.
Some of them are not.
Okay.
But on this one, we tend to side with the lawyers for obvious reasons.
Okay. Well, the first thing somebody does when they get a gun is they want to change something on it.
Something, yeah.
Grips, sights, get a trigger job done.
All of the above. And so the fuel for this one is that, a lot of people are saying, anything you do to your gun will be used against you in court. And yeah, it will. The question here is, does it matter or is it going to make a difference?
Right.
So first thing people usually do, they'll change to, upgrade those factory sights to something like night sights or fiber optic sights.
Yep.
Or both tritium fiber optic sights. Anyways, you get what I'm saying.
Which most times no one's going to notice. They're not going to know if they came with the gun from the factory or they were added later.
Yeah, and sometimes it's in the forensics report in the courtroom. Sometimes that's not even an issue, right. And the judge decides what they bring into the case. The firearms, regardless, is always going to be in the case, obviously. Mm-hmm. But what modifications are in it, or what notable modifications are in it, the judge will decide what to bring in. Which brings us to another good point here before we get into any more modifications, that if your judge is not a Pro 2A judge, it may not go as well for you, even though, I'm not saying that's going to make you win or lose. I'm just going to say this. It's going to make it more of a pain in the courtroom if you had to use your firearm in self-defense.
Or if you're in front of a jury.
In front of a jury, yeah. So,
depending on where you're from, the more liberal portions of the country would look at it differently than if you were deep in the heart of Texas, say.
Right. So that's going to play a major role as well. But in most cases, modifying your sights doesn't really matter. Yes, they'll use that, but doesn't make a difference. No, as long as as long as you're clearly in the right, as a good shoot is what they would call it, then it doesn't matter. Same thing with most other modifications, like your trigger modification. As long as you're not modifying a safety feature of the firearm, then you're good.
Right.
It's whenever you get into modifying safety features, then they can kind of use negligence against you as another stab at you. But as long as you're sticking with the core functional purpose of the firearm or the firearm component, usually you're good. And kind of brings us to another point here. The biggest ones that get brought up in the courtroom the most are the cosmetic modifications, not necessarily the usability type modifications.
Because it's all about how it looks when you're trying to demonstrate a fact to, say, a jury or a layman.
Yeah.
You can't go in the internals and explain a trigger job, but you can.
Yeah, so if
explain
you're
a mean-looking, evil-looking firearm.
If you're one of those people that, put on the front of the muzzle, look here, wait for a flash, or smile, wait for a flash, laser etched in there, that's probably not a good thing to put on your carry gun.
No.
Neither is like your AR-15 ejection port cover when it opens up. If it says you're effed on the inside, probably not good.
Yeah.
You get where I'm going with this. Anything like that, even a modification such as this one. So this M&P frame was painted green with Brownells Aluma High 2. Not saying Brownells Aluma High 2 is awesome, because it is. It's awesome. You should paint your gun with it. Paint your gun with Aluma High. Okay, anyways, that's more likely to be brought up in court than the custom trigger in this gun. You know, it's weird. It's weird how that kind of stuff works. I say more likely because there's no definite this is going over that. It all depends on who the judge is, what state, wherever. You know, it's weird.
Right, but cosmetics are something that a non-gun person can cling to. They can wrap their mind around that.
Right. So, as far as the myth is concerned, should you modify your carry gun? And oh, we didn't even get into the revolver type stuff.
Oh, yeah.
This revolver looks completely stock, but has the trigger pull been modified?
Well, who knows?
Who knows?
And
Steve definitely did a trigger job on that gun.
And when they take it into evidence, who's going to check? You know?
Yeah.
Some places do, some places don't. Some places toss it in an evidence locker and never look at it, never take it out of the bag.
Yeah, and another thing that can be on your side, which leads us to another point, is if you're going to have custom work done to your gun, having a gunsmith do said work can be in your favor. If you have a custom trigger put in or something like that, having you being able to present that as a firearm professional or professional gunsmith installed this component. It's like whenever something you're in a car accident or something, being able to say I had a mechanic do this modification to the vehicle could work better in your favor. Same thing with firearms. So
right.
Support your local gunsmith as well. It's another point.
If you wanted better trigger, put a drop-in kit in. There's plenty of them out there. If you got an M&P, you can do an Apex kit, for example.
Yep.
Glock, how many kits are there out there for Glocks that modify the pull, that are factory drop-ins?
Yep. Super straightforward there.
One thing I do with a carry gun is I choose a gun that I don't mind losing to an evidence locker for the rest of my life if need be, and I don't make it flashy. There's nothing flashy about it.
Yep.
The flashiest thing about my gun, it's a Glock. It's got some of those sticky grips on there that are neoprene or some kind of give you a really good grip, because it's a small gun. I can't come to grips with it unless I have that stuff on there.
Come to grips with it. That's funny. So yeah, usable upgrades like that are definitely a good, fair, easy choice.
Yeah.
And just making sure you're in the right. Just don't go. I think the moral of the story here is don't go out blasting people, Steve.
And don't go out with the meanest looking firearm that you can find or modified. Just get something kind of plain Jane that doesn't attract a lot of attention.
There's a lot of good looking firearms or factory looking firearms that are extremely usable. Take my SIG 226 Legion, for example. I carry that gun, probably shouldn't. It's going to be super expensive to replace if I have to use it.
Yeah.
But it has a lot of, I guess what you can call factory upgrades on it compared to a normal SIG, but it is technically a complete factory gun. So there's that.
So what do you think? What do you carry? That's what I'd like to find out in the comments. I'd like to know who carries what, revolver versus automatic, modified versus unmodified. And if you've ever had a run-in because of a modification you've done on a gun, we'd especially like to know that.
And if you can name a court case or provide us with a link to a court case where a firearm upgrade has been the determining factor, whether someone was guilty or not in a defensive handgun use case, post that link down below, because we couldn't find a single one.
Yeah, and that'd be super helpful to the whole community.
Couldn't find a single one. So because we couldn't find a single one, that's why we're going to call this busted, even though we're not telling you to do it one way or the other.
All right. And that's it for this time. We'll see you next time when we bring you another edition of Smyth Busters.